Thank you very much, and welcome all of you to our high-level conference on drones in Amsterdam. It's another hybrid event, so we also have people who are joining us online. My name is Janet Northcote, and I'm the Head of Communications at EASA, and I'm here just to guide you through this event. So now, without any further ado, I'd like to call up Patrick Key, who will kick off the conference for us. Patrick, over to you.
Thank you, Janet. Madam Commissioner, dear Henrik, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you once again to this high-level conference on drones. This conference is extremely important for our drone community for two reasons. First of all, I think we all recognize that it's the first major event where we have been able to meet physically since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, and it is also taking place after the first set of drones regulations have been adopted and while they are being implemented. We are here today to demonstrate and hopefully convince you that we, EASA, have delivered on all the promises that we made during last conference. You asked us whether we could keep pace with the speed of innovation in the UAS area, and I hope that you will be convinced that in the last 2 years, we most certainly can do so. We have gone a step further in our work to enable safe and sustainable drones and UAM operations, as well as safe and workable U-space system. These were the commitments we made, and we have fulfilled them, and sometimes we have gone beyond. We'll present to you the outcomes of this work during today's conference. When we were defining the topics to be addressed during the conference this year, we considered that one of the topics we had not touched upon so far in this forum is the topic of societal concerns and managing societal expectations, particularly with respect to urban air mobility. While we are still working on this topic internally within EASA, we know it is of wide interest to parties both inside and outside the drones community and would therefore be a great topic for our first day. Indeed, it is quite timely as it follows on well from a deeper study of citizens' views on societal acceptance that we published last year. I will give you a short overview of the main findings of this study when I return to the stage to present the EASA highlights. Our schedule for today promises some great keynote speeches and interesting panels that will address all the topics related to UAM, ranging from societal acceptance to stakeholder coordination and reviewing all the building blocks we need to put into place to make this happen. On our second day tomorrow, my staff will lead deep dives into all technical topics related to UAM in technical workshops. I hope that you will enjoy the high-level conference edition this year and will take away learnings and impressions that will influence your actions in the rest of 2022. And now, without further delay, it's my honor and I'm delighted to give the floor to our Commissioner for Transport, Mrs. Adina VÄLIAN. Madame VÄLIAN, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Patrick. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased and excited to be here with this event, and especially to this high-level conference. I want to thank EASA for organizing it. So thank you, Patrick, and hello, everyone from our transport community present here. I said about EASA because it is a truly priceless partner when it comes to keeping European aviation safe, and recent events have certainly put the spotlight on the agency's ability to deal with new challenges, be it during the COVID pandemic, when EASA was key in defining measures to ensure the health, safety of the air travelers and aviation personnel, or in recent weeks when you helped us to implement our broad and far-reaching sanctions targeting the Russian aviation sector in response to Russia's brutal and illegal war against Ukraine and its people. I want to thank EASA for its excellent cooperation through these difficult years. The safety and security of aviation must always be our #1 priority, and I'm glad to be able to rely on the agency's expertise to ensure both in these days and always. These challenges, the unexpected part of everything, is showing us that other challenges might be ahead. Some of those we have started to discuss upon, be it the decarbonization of aviation or the topic what we are discussing today, the development of safe, smart, and sustainable European drone sector. These are subjects we have been working for a long time, and we are still see them as challenges to be complete in the future. Much progress has been made since 2019, when it was the last physical conference held here. Research and industrialization are progressing at an unprecedented pace, and I'm impressed by the results of the innovative air mobility startups and partnerships on show here today. We are also making good progress on the regulatory side. The publication of EU space regulation 1 year ago marked the completion of the first cycle, fulfilling the objectives set out in 2015 Aviation Strategy for Europe, and Helsinki's declaration on drones from 2017. Europe is today at the forefront of the unmanned aircraft operations, and with an almost complete regulatory framework covering everything from operations to aircraft design and unmanned traffic management. The next step is to unlock more advanced operations, such as the transport of people, on which we are working in full cooperation with industry and EASA. I'm hopeful that we will see the first unmanned vehicles in our skies by 2030, so that urban air mobility moves from fiction to fact. But it goes without saying that this can only be done once we are certain to achieve safety levels equivalent to that of current aviation operations. Safely integrating unmanned airspace mobility and air traffic management will require important coordination efforts from all key stakeholders, including civil aviation, regional, local, and law enforcement authorities. We also need to look beyond safety and tackle remaining technical, legal, or administrative obstacles to the development of a thriving drone economy in Europe. There are so many fascinating topics to be addressed, from rules on vertiports and multimodal links to charging and storage needs, cybersecurity, standardization, access to finance. We are currently looking at all these aspects in our Drone Strategy 2.0, which will take stock of what has been achieved to date and look at how drone services can support Europe's twin transition to green and digital economy. Of course, we will also explore the question of synergies between civil and military uses of drones, which sadly has taken on a new relevance in the context of Russia's illegal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. This work is, as always, underpinned by extensive consultation with the full spectrum of relevant stakeholders, including the wider general public. We know that societal acceptance is a major precondition, which means guaranteeing the very highest level of safety, as well as mitigating environmental and security risks. Many of you present today have been involved in this ongoing work, and I want to thank you for your valuable contributions. I think together we shall formulate a long-term perspective with clear objectives, actions to overcome barriers to growth and to accelerate the deployment of urban and innovative air mobility to clear benefit our economy and society. So I'm counting on each and every one of you to work with us to get your drone policy right. I will present the new strategy 2.0 towards the end of the year, in plenty time to feed into discussion at the next Amsterdam Drone Week and high-level conference in 2023. So thank you very much, and I wish you a very interesting discussion forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. VÄLEAN. Before we start the next session, we have a short video we'd like to show you, which just gives an idea of some of the highlights from last year. And then Patrick Key will follow up with his remarks. Thank you.
Sorry, it's me again, and I apologize. You will see a bit of me this morning and this afternoon. This short video summarized the outcome of many hundreds of hours of work dedicated to drones and related subjects since our last conference in December 2019. And as you can see, despite the COVID pandemic and other related and unrelated crises, EASA has responded to your calls for swift action and stepped up the pace of delivery of all elements we need in Europe to facilitate drones activities and to make urban air mobility a reality. As mentioned in the video, the European drones regulation was implemented, enabling free movement and mutual recognition of US operational authorization. You asked us last time for simplification, and we responded with implementation of predefined risk assessments and standard scenarios. Our main goal in EASA is to ensure a harmonized level of safety across the EU. This was our starting point to define a proportionate qualification of US design through a design verification process. And finally, as we promised in the last conference, the first use-based regulatory framework was produced and adopted in record time, and everything took less than 2 years based on our initial opinion, which was the first in the world on this subject. It has now been accompanied by the proposal of a completely new set of supporting material. There was actually nothing available worldwide to take as a reference. This was published for consultation end of 2021, end of December 2021, and the aim is to achieve implementation by January 26, 2023, so next year. These regulations are not only novel, but also quite recent, and it will take some time to ensure that they are understood and implemented in the same way across the EU. To facilitate this, my team are conducting regular webinars with the national authorities of the member states to discuss topics such as cross-border operations, registration, light US operator certification, and the application of the SORA risk assessment methodology, so as to facilitate exchange of best practice among NAAs, national authorities. We have also started inspections of member states with a light touch, looking at learning how to walk the talk together. We have also been active in what we refer to as counter-UAS. These are activities to support aerodrome operators to manage incidents caused by unauthorized UAS operations close to an airport. We issued guidelines for the management of drone incidents at airports in May last year. The aim is to minimize the extent of the disruption while, above all, ensuring that aviation operations remain safe. One of our most important achievements last year, and the basis for our conference today, is our extensive work on urban air mobility operations. In late 2020 and early 2021, we conducted a detailed study on societal acceptance of UAM, canvassing 4,000 citizens in 6 European urban areas. The results were published in May 2021, and to our knowledge, this is the only EU-wide study done to date that covers this topic in such depth. You may wonder why EASA, as the safety regulator, conducted such a study. Well, UAM operations will, for the first time, bring aviation operations down to ground level, close to where citizens are living, working, and walking through the streets of our cities. This means that citizens will be more closely exposed to aircraft or drone operations than ever before. Nobody has any experience of this. There is no blueprint outlining what citizens expect from us as safety regulators for this new field of aviation. It is a blank sheet of paper, and that means a steep learning curve for all parties involved in making this happen. We wanted, partly through the study, to raise awareness among citizens that these changes are coming. But our main aim was to hear from real people what they like and fear about this change, which will become part of our day-to-day lives. The results were surprisingly homogeneous across the 6 cities we focused on, which were Barcelona, Budapest, Hamburg, Milan, Öresund, which is the Danish-Swedish cross-border area, and Paris. This was a good starting point, given that we are looking to create a single regulatory playing field at EU level. Overall, we had 10 main findings. Sorry, up. Henrik, it's not you yet. Yeah, I hope you can see them. So we had 10 main findings that I would like to go a bit into details. First of all, we found that 93% of the respondents had a generally positive initial stance to these new modes of transport. 71% were ready to try out UAM services such as air taxi services or parcel delivery. Cases in the common interest, such as in emergencies or for medical transportation, received a very strong support. As we had expected, concerns were expressed on safety, noise, and the environment. Yet citizens mostly took it for granted that UAM will be safe, and they expect high standards in aviation. A number of the respondents to the study were saying that they would expect UAM drones to be at the same safety level as commercial air transport. Noise was definitely a concern, with some mitigation possible if the type of noise fits in with typical city sounds. On the environment, we had anticipated that citizens would see UAM as a way to reduce congestion on the ground and get cleaner air in the city. This was confirmed. Additionally, the global environmental or climate impact of the whole UAM industry, battery vehicle energy production, was highlighted as an important factor which needs to be adequately addressed. However, there were some findings that we had not anticipated, which included, for instance, concerns on the impact of UAM on wildlife, in particular on birds and insects, which was the same concern expressed in the 6 cities that we considered. A further surprise came in the level of concern about security and cybersecurity. The abuse of drones for terrorist attacks or for deliberately causing harm to individuals is a real concern for many, and certainly something that we will need to address. As safety regulators, our primary role is to ensure that these operations are safe. But the task does not stop there. If this innovative new form of aviation is to be a success, we need also to ensure that these operations are secure and sustainable, that they respect the privacy of citizens, and that they make a difference by adding value to their lives. If we don't meet these goals, there will be no public acceptance, and UAM simply will not happen. However, these concerns cannot be addressed by EASA alone. This requires a concerted effort from all of us: industry, European authorities, national authorities, local authorities, urban planners, security authorities, environmental organizations, and many others. Our study showed that citizens expect all the relevant authorities to work together to make this happen. This is one of the reasons why we are all here today. Ladies and gentlemen, our comprehensive regulatory proposal on UAM is now ready for public consultation. We have been working since 2019 to prepare the first regulatory package that will allow UAM operations with manned VTOLs as a first step. The proposed regulations are now in our internal consultation phase and will be out for public consultation in May this year. This will include operational requirements enabling manned VTOL operations, innovative aerial operations, innovative air mobility, and urban air mobility. This proposal will also include the initial and continuing airworthiness requirements for UAS in the high-risk operations of the specific category, as well as the operational requirements and amendments to flight crew and air rules, which are necessary to enable manned VTOL operations that will support innovative and urban air mobility. During the public consultation, we will work in parallel on subsequent NPAs, proposing requirements for US operations in the certified category. This proposal will be available for consultation as from 2023, next year. As I mentioned at the start of my remarks, Europe and EASA were the first worldwide to produce a regulation for the U-space. We have repeated this success history in the last week with the publication of our prototype technical specifications on vertiport design, which offers guidelines for member states to support them on their design of vertiports. I am very proud of my team for once again delivering such groundbreaking work. Vertiports are the ground infrastructure which will make urban air mobility possible. With manufacturers expected to have aircraft ready for certification in just a few years, the time to set these up is very tight. We will hear this afternoon of start of operations in 2024. Which means that we need to start to implement vertiports by then. Last but not least, I want to take the opportunity of this high-level conference to announce that EASA will receive a delegation agreement from the European Commission following a request by the European Parliament to work on a pilot project to develop an online platform for local bodies involved in UAM implementation. This will facilitate the understanding of the regulations, the necessary approvals, and relevant considerations. We intend to launch this work in the summer of this year. Once again, here we have an instance where we, as EASA, are taking what I believe is an innovative approach to meet the needs of this fast-moving environment. So as you can see, we have been pretty busy. And we know also that our work makes work for all of you, which means that you have been quite busy as well. Our aim is to work in partnership with all parties in line with the strategic direction given by the European Commission. And on that note, I am very pleased to welcome my friend Henrik Hololai, Director General for Mobility and Transport of the European Commission, to give us the strategic direction that the Commission wants to see for our work. Henrik, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I see it's 2 minutes past 12, so it's afternoon time. And thank you very much, Patrick, for your most kind words, and also for congratulations to you and to Paul, of course, in organizing this week, and for EASA, of course, for all the success that we are celebrating here all together. And it is also a great pleasure for me to be here and to address you today, as this is a topic that I consider most fascinating. And in my mind, the potential here is enormous. We are doing something special, entering new frontiers that is opening up new possibilities and will deliver towards many new opportunities. I'm very excited about that and hope you too. These will be very interesting days of discussions ahead and most interesting years to follow. And also today I already had the opportunity together with the Commissioner to go around and to see the different drones and also the companies, and so much excitement. And there's one thing I noticed: nobody was complaining. That's very unusual in aviation. To start, I'd like to also echo Commissioner's words and say how pleased I am to be here for the opening of the EASA's high-level conference on drones. It is great to see so many dedicated professionals back here in Amsterdam for 3 days of intensive knowledge sharing, networking, matchmaking. I still remember the last time we discussed this here in Amsterdam a few years ago. I think it was 2019. And how much things have actually changed meanwhile. The pandemic might not be over yet, and I know many of you still are taking part remotely, but I'm confident that the drone sector and the transport sector in general will come out stronger and more resilient from this challenging experience. During present difficult times, our thoughts also go out to everyone in the drone and UAM community from Ukraine, many of whom will not have been able to join us on this date due to the ongoing Russian aggression in their country by the murderous Russian regime. All of our thoughts and good wishes go for them and the brave Ukrainians who are fighting for the freedom for us and for their country. Now turning to today's topic, UAM becoming a reality and fully integrated to our transport and mobility network. We have done a lot in the previous years to create a serious basis that delivers highest level framework for safety, security, and privacy. Now we are reviewing our drone policy in the light of the smart and sustainable mobility strategy, but also the latest developments in this particular domain. And as you know, developments in this domain are very fast and fast-moving. And it's also very fascinating. And it is essential that first, we don't lock ourselves into something which becomes obsolete. And secondly, that at least in our thinking, we remain one step ahead. We are convinced that urban air mobility will feature prominently in urban innovation and sustainable strategies, and will be key not only in addressing shortcomings of existing modes of transport, but also in contributing to emission reductions and acting as a catalyst to the electrification of aviation. And we are looking forward to significantly develop urban air mobility throughout Europe by the end of the decade. Our discussion and cooperation with stakeholders has allowed us to collect a lot of valuable input that helps us steer the way. The consultation of the informal drone experts group, an open public consultation, targeted questionnaires, interviews, and finally 3 industry hearings, including 1 dedicated to urban air mobility, has definitely widened and sharpened our views and focus for the next months and years ahead. The work of the European Drone Leaders Group to prepare the Drone Strategy 2.0 that the Commissioner was also referring to has been the most valuable experience. And this work has to be able to identify key challenges and also the ways how to address them, and also to know what are the obstacles and how we can actually make sure that we create the most enabling framework for the commercial operations of drones and development of urban air mobility. One topic is clearly emerging from these discussions already, and that is social acceptance, societal acceptance of the UAM. It will be the key to the future development of the urban air mobility and innovative drone services, as without that, it would be difficult to see the fast and wide uptake of these very important services that can change the way we do logistics and mobility in the urban context. While making things happen, it's equally important to educate and communicate for the wider public in order to explain and demonstrate the value of the innovative air mobility services and what they can bring to people and businesses, but also for the society more generally. We need to use practical examples through demonstrators and sandboxes to allow local communities and authorities to experience as early as possible the benefits of possible UAM services, and to make communities to become used to these new opportunities. This also helps us to build up so much more needed societal acceptance. I mean, there is one very good example that I also experienced today when we had a short demonstrator of a drone, which was the product, I think, of the Munich University students, and which primary task was to quickly deliver the heart defibrillator. And of course, this is something that you can actually see how that can save lives. And these are the kind of demonstrators, and these are the kind of stories that make people also understand that drones and urban air mobility is not something for only exclusive population or rich, but something that becomes affordable, but these services are actually benefiting many and saving lives, among other things. The public needs really to be convinced that the drones are not just expensive toys or stealth weapons, but useful and practical tools to address real mobility needs that will help to shape the sustainable future of mobility. The concerns related to safety, security, and noise have to be taken seriously and explained in detail. When we talk about security, of course, we particularly mean cybersecurity. We need to involve a broad group of stakeholders, including regional and local non-aviation authorities, ground mobility, urban planners. It has to be an inclusive process and open to all, as addressing those concerns will require a novel and multidisciplinary approach. I know that the UAM cities community has recently developed guidelines for the application of the European Sustainable Urban Mobility Planning concept to UAM. This is very encouraging first concrete step in implementing that approach, and I welcome this a lot. Another important theme is linked to the organization of access to the airspace for radically different types of aircrafts, manned or unmanned. The Commission, with the support, cooperation, and partnership with the EASA, has taken concrete steps, the most important being the adoption of the U-Space framework. This became possible due to and was built on the excellent work by the CESAR GU through the airspace architecture study. U-Space will harmonize, as from next year, the management of unmanned traffic and will enable the scaling up of drone services in designated sectors of the airspace. This is a key step towards the development of drone services in Europe more generally. But not only as our steps and solutions are closely watched around the world, and no doubt, many global partners will follow our solutions. So we are constantly moving the frontier and act as a catalyst, as well as source of inspiration to many partners around the globe. How can we reconcile the human-centric ATC and the digital automated U-Space concept? How can we manage the transition from segregation to integration? When can we foresee an eventual convergence of both worlds? Given the pace at which the digitalization of ATM has been achieved, it will be quite a significant challenge. We aim to have initiated the integration of manned and unmanned traffic by 2030 in line with our strategy. In the meantime, more studies, more work will be needed to support the fair and seamless airspace access to all users, and to accelerate development of cutting-edge solutions to manage conventional aircraft, drones, and air taxis. Something that squarely fits with the scope of the newly established CESAR 3 program set up to deliver the digital European sky. We carry out further analysis of the input collected in the coming weeks and months to design a sound and ambitious drone strategy for the next 8 years, something so many of you have contributed to already, and which will create a solid framework as well as a roadmap for the next years to come. Whether it is in the field of U-Space, urban air mobility, or drone services, we have to make sure that the conditions for further innovation are there and bring more new solutions in the market. And this spirit is very much present here, also in the exhibition hall. The spirit of innovation, where you can also see small players innovating and coming out with new products. This spirit has to be maintained, and I think this is something which is very unique to the sector, but also to everyone who is involved in this business. Dear friends, I'm looking forward to thought-provoking panels, discussions and debates, and I understand there is more than 250 speakers, that will further fuel our reflection. We need your views, inputs, continuous engagement to create common success. That is why we are here. Only the sky is the limit, and let's use our potential and make this domain a common European success. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I wish you a great conference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hololai, for that inspiring view of the vision for Europe in this area. We're now going to hear from the manufacturer side, and I'd like to invite Florian Reuter, who's the CEO of VÄLENCOPTER, to come up and speak to us. Florian.
Okay, so let's give it a quick test. I hope you can hear and see me well. My voice is a little lower than usual, so I might have to grab a sip of water in between. First of all, I want to start off with thanking the organizers for this amazing Amsterdam Drone Week. I think it's a great series of events happening. I hope for many further events in the future. I think it's important gathering of regulators, but also industry partners, to drive forward in actually making urban air mobility a reality. I personally find it a great honor to be speaking here alongside EASA, Patrick, and of course also European Commission, Henrik. We have been working side by side for a number of years to really bring to fruition everything that is being talked about here today. And I can only support and commend the discussion points that Patrick and Henrik have already brought up. As VÄLOCOPTER, we are very much engaged in many of the activities. We're actually benefiting from the rules that are being set in place. And as you will all learn also throughout my presentation, the rest of the world is eagerly watching on what is happening here in Europe. EASA has clearly taken a worldwide leadership role in regulating all these aspects that we're talking about. Let me see whether this works. Excellent. So, everything that I'm going to talk about now, and I could talk about a myriad of things. There's so many aspects that are interesting, that are all happening at the same time, that are all important to really bring the benefits of urban air mobility to cities all around the globe. I will focus on giving you a glimpse of where we are as VÄLOCOPTER in bringing urban air mobility to life, and also on what the prospects, what the outlook is over the next 3 to 5 years. However, we always need to bear in mind that if we look at a time span of 5 years, this is really just the very humble beginning of everything that will happen afterwards. We are at the start of a transformation of the way we live mobility on this planet, of the way we move about our cities, that will unfold itself over many decades to come. The world, the cities will look fundamentally different in 20, 30 years down the road. As I said, this is only just the start. And we are putting in place the foundations of what this future is going to look like. Just one last comment here on the first slide. We're talking about how to make urban air mobility a reality. Many people still think it's fiction. And I'm going to show you on how much progress we've actually made in recent years. But what is also important is because there's a lot of fiction, there's a lot of PowerPoint, there's a lot of animations around. And I want to make sure that you can clearly distinguish between what is animated and what is real. So every picture that has this photo icon on the top corner is a real picture of things, vehicles, demonstrations that VÄLOCOPTER has conducted in recent years. And all footage, all motion footage that I'm going to show you is real footage of actual flights. It all started in 2011, over 11 years ago, when we, for the very first time, showed to the world that distributed electric propulsion in a multicopter is actually capable of carrying a human. We made it to the Guinness Book of World Records with this aviation milestone. You can believe us that the phone didn't stop ringing in southern Germany after this initial flight in 2011. 5 years later, we received the first permit to fly from German aviation authorities, by all means, for flying one of our founders in the VÄLOCOPTER, VC200 at the time. We showcased our technology live on stage in a casino at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in 2018. We flew in Dubai upon invitation by the Crown Prince of Dubai in the heart of the city there, fully autonomous. So we had a pre-programmed track where our vehicle was tracking GPS coordinates in 2019 already. In the subsequent years, we did many more public demonstrations because we believe it is important to bring regulators, to bring city officials, but also to bring the overall public along on our journey on implementing urban air mobility. So we are conducting a number of public demonstrations, test flights, always with full regulatory approval in cities all around the world. So you saw in Stuttgart, Germany, you saw in Singapore a major demonstration of urban air mobility, different aspects. You see here us flying along legacy aircraft in Helsinki International Airport or Le Bourget Airport in Paris. So all of those flights have actually occurred. For all of those flights, including here in the US in front of a crowd of 100,000 spectators in OSHKOSH, all those flights have occurred with full regulatory approval by the respective authorities. So we rely on very close, trustful interaction with regulatory bodies all around the world for any of our activities. Now, so far, we've been restricted to test flights. And of course, we're looking forward to now expand this to real commercial applications. And I'm going to talk about the path that is required to get there. We have heard that we're speaking a lot about air taxis and so on, but clearly there's also the potential to transform urban logistics. If we're capable of building a remotely controlled or even fully autonomous man or human carrying vehicle, we might as well use the same technology to build a cargo carrying vehicle that adheres to the same highest safety standards. And we're talking about commercial air transport safety standards. So we are using the technology that we're developing for our human carrying vehicles and are building a derivative, which we call VoloDrone, with an eye to also obtain full type certificate for this cargo carrying drone, which can then help us to solve the logistical challenges that we have, not only in cities, but in many other aspects as well. So what you see here is the world's first public demonstration test flight of the VoloDrone, here in cooperation with one of our partners, in the heart of Hamburg, over the Hamburg port, where we were flying again with full regulatory approval. And believe me, the process to obtain these regulatory approvals has changed significantly from when we started 10 years ago. Today, we have clearly established processes, contact persons. Everybody is learning about this technology much easier today, much closer to actual commercial implementation than what we found 10 years ago. None of that was existent back then. So we have come a long way already. So VoloCopter as a company is focusing on 4 products. It's the air taxi. The majority of all of our resources, of our focus, is on VoloCity to really make urban air mobility a reality, to really obtain EASA type certificate for this vehicle. As I said, we see great potential also in the cargo logistics side. So the VoloDrone is a direct derivative applying the same technology as the VoloCity vehicle. But then again, as we continue to preach in the aviation sector, every mission requires its specific vehicle. Specific mission, specific vehicle configuration. So we have accepted that beyond the urban city center, where you are applying a VoloCity vehicle, there's also a need to transport people in a sustainable fashion, in a safe fashion, over longer distances. So we have designed the VoloConnect. It's a 4-seater aircraft that has much larger wings, creating uplift, therefore allowing us to fly longer ranges, fully electric. And then lastly, of course, these novel types of aircraft need to be fully integrated into today's city infrastructure, into today's air traffic management infrastructure. So we are building a software platform underlying all of our operations, helping us to not only optimize our own fleet operations, but to also integrate seamlessly with all other ecosystem players, as well as intermodal integration. And we've heard that to bring the benefits of UAM to citizens all around the world, we need to seamlessly integrate into the overall mobility landscape. And VoloIQ will allow us to do just that. Quick reminder, the VoloCity is a multicopter on purpose. It's a 2-seater vehicle, and we will start piloted. We believe the multicopter is the perfect design choice for short-range inner-city missions, where it's all about vertical takeoff and landing capability, hover capability, small footprint, and extremely low noise profiles. Those are the key elements that distinguish VoloCity multi-rotor concept from other concepts that you might choose. For the VoloConnect, we have deliberately chosen a lift and cruise configuration, staying away from the complexities and the open certification questions that are remaining with tilt vehicles. So that's the reason and the considerations behind our design decisions at VoloCopter. As I said, underlying all of this is VoloIQ. Why? Because it enables us to scale our operations in an efficient manner, to ensure safety, to integrate with other modes of transport, as I discussed. But clearly, the long-term prospect of VoloIQ is to support the transition then, ultimately, to take out the pilot of the vehicles and switch to fully autonomous operations. And that, of course, requires an extremely safe and secure system of systems that allows you to have the same safety levels as you will ensure with a pilot on board once you take the pilot off board. So there's extremely high requirements around VoloIQ, and we have engaged with EASA on what are the prerequisites that we need to ensure on our software platform in order to then ultimately make that switch to fully autonomous operations. So VoloIQ is an integral part of our strategic assets going forward, and we're investing very heavily into that. In the meantime, we have assembled over 1,500 test flights already in places all around the world over the past 5 years. And as I said, each time we engage massively with the local authorities to receive all of the permits that are required to conduct those flights. We are flying at international airports, we're flying within city limits. We always require a host of bodies to give green light, ultimately give the permissions to allow us these flights. We always start at our home base. We're based in southern Germany. We're extremely fortunate to be under EASA regime today because, as I said, EASA is very decisively moving forward, setting the standards for many other countries around the world to follow. And the fact that we were allowed subsequently to also fly on all other continents is a great testimony to the guidance that Europe is giving in this space, also for the rest of the world to follow. If we look at the timeline and the complexity that is involved to actually make urban air mobility a reality, it's not just about certifying the vehicle. And you can see the various generations of vehicles that we have flown over the past years in different formats, right? We can fly them fully autonomous, remotely controlled, or piloted, depending on what the use case is. So we have assembled all of this knowledge, and this is all flowing now into, of course, our discussions with EASA to obtain type certificate for our vehicles. And as you can see here to the right, subsequently, many other jurisdictions will follow, again, the lead of EASA and also give us validation of that type certificate in their respective jurisdictions. As an industry partner, this is extremely important for us because ultimately, of course, this is a technology that can bring benefits to people all over the world. All cities are pretty much suffering from the same challenges on the mobility side. It's not just restricted to Europe. So having this certification approach being accepted all around the world is a key asset for us. And again, I see it as a great advantage to be based in Europe in this case. Then, of course, you also have other dimensions of certification. So it's not just restricted to the vehicle. You have to certify your production. You have to certify your air operations, and ultimately then also the maintenance of it. And on each of those dimensions, we are very active with EASA to make sure that once EASA implements the rules, we aim to be the first ones to fully comply with them and then receive all green lights, all certificates necessary to roll out our commercial launch. Together with our partners, we have clearly stated the objective to receive type certificate and then roll out our services in time for the Paris 2024 Olympics. That is a hugely ambitious goal. It requires more than just Volocopter doing its homework, but this is the goal that we have jointly set with our partners, and we're making great strides towards it. As you can see, Volocopter is very active along all dimensions here. We're the first and only eVTOL company so far in the world to have obtained design organization approval. We have acquired a long-term production partner company that already holds a production organization approval. We are working on expanding the scope of that production organization approval to then also cover these novel types of aircraft. But as you can see, there's a whole lot of work involved, and it requires both EASA as well as our work to complete this process. Ultimately, we want to offer a business that not just builds vehicles, we want to deploy, operate these vehicles alone, but also together with partners to offer a seamless end-to-end experience to our customers. That requires us to work extensively with many partners around the entire ecosystem, from the vertiport to the air traffic management integration, to the city integration, intermodal integration. All of those aspects need to be covered in order to offer a fantastic value-adding experience, service to our customers around the world. Urban mobility as a service, as we call it. Just to give you an example, in Paris, we are working closely together with Aéroports de Paris and RATP, Paris region, to really bring urban air mobility to life in Paris. It's the first, let's say, city that we are focusing on. The potential of the service that we want to offer is to offer a trip from Le Bourget to La Défense in 17 instead of 50 minutes. And that is predictably 17 minutes at a comparable cost as today's taxi. And I believe that is a massively, massively interesting value proposition for many customers. So we expect to be supply constrained for the longest time, simply because we see such a high demand for these services going forward. And again, Paris is just one example of many others. Clearly, all of Volocopter's vehicles adhere to the highest safety standards, and we want to be a part of the solution of the city of the future. So there's no question that everything we do needs to be as sustainable as possible. All of our vehicles are propelled fully electric. Of course, that comes along with the limitations that we currently have with batteries. With the battery that we have on the VoloCity today, we can show the performance of 35 kilometers. We hope to expand it in the future, but that is the best technology we can deploy today that is also certifiable today. But if you look at the constraints that it gives us, 35 kilometers covers nicely a megacity like Paris end-to-end easily. And this is exactly the type of missions, exactly the type of configuration that we're looking for. As I said, VoloIQ is our software backend that helps us to integrate with all of our infrastructure partners, and that helps us to offer a seamless experience to our customers, both on the passenger transportation side as well as on the cargo transportation side. And you can see the impressive lineup of partners, of investors that we have already convinced with our path towards bringing urban air mobility to life. And we're incredibly proud of having all these partners on board, and I know many of you are here in the audience today as well. And of course, we wouldn't have come so far in making urban air mobility a reality without all of the support from regulators as well as from industry partners along the entire vertical supply chain. Then lastly, as I said, this is a technology that can bring benefits to people visiting and living in cities all around the world. And of course, once we have received type certificate from EASA, once we can roll out our commercial launch in Paris, we aim to bring these benefits to as many cities around the globe as possible. This is a truly global market opportunity, and we intend to tap that. You can see a number of cities that we are already very much engaged with. You will see volocopter activities in all of those cities that we have flown in the past. There's always a reason on why we conduct a specific public demonstration flight in a given city. It's always because we have partners on the ground, because we intend to establish volocopter business in those cities in the very near future. And as I think, after Paris 2024, we expect to roll out our commercial services across many cities quickly thereafter. So this is where we are today. This is on how far we have come on making urban air mobility a reality. We still have some homework to do and some challenges to overcome. But if I look back, in the past 10 years, we didn't even have anybody believing in this technology. We have proven the technology. We didn't have any idea on how to ever certify these vehicles, not to speak of the operations, the maintenance, the pilot training, all of the complexity that is involved to ultimately meet the highest levels of safety in our service operations. So to me, it feels like I can see the finish line of this marathon that we're all on together, and we're extremely excited to get over that finish line within the next 2 years. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for supporting the ecosystem overall.
Thank you very much. So we've now heard from various aspects, and we're getting ready now to talk about the challenges that are yet ahead this afternoon in the sessions. Before that, we're going to break for lunch. Before you actually leave, we'd like to leave you with a very short video.